Hello, everybody. Welcome to Connecting with Teens. Bernardo Salcido here, and I am so glad to have our guest today, Cesar. We've been connecting for quite some time, and we've tried to get this interview to go, but today is the day. You're going to love our conversation on work-life balance because I feel like something is so important that a lot of parents out there are struggling with, especially if mom and dad are working. How do you build that relationship with your teenager whenever you're both working and trying to figure out that work-life balance? So Cesar, thank you for joining me today. Hey, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and your experience before we jump into the main topic?
Thank you, Bernardo. Hello, everybody. My name is Cesar Ruiz. I live in Dallas right now with my wife. We have 6 kids, but I'm originally from Mexico. And our kids are, whenever they ask me, what ages are your kids? I'm like, all ages. Which one do you want? So our youngest one is 12 and our oldest one is 26. When our first child was born, when Natalia was born, I started catching the vision that this was something very important. Having kids was something very important that was going to be long term. What was I going to do when they got older? When they became teenagers? Because I looked around and I didn't see a lot of people that really knew how to do it. All I heard was that, oh, teenagers are problematic, but I knew there was a different way. So we started reading, studying, finding some mentors that guided us along the way, and we made a lot of mistakes, but we also found out what not just what doesn't work, but what works. Today we have an online business when we help people and parents how to grow their business or their career without losing their soul, their family, or their health in the process. So that's our motto.
That's huge, right? Because I'm sure there's a lot of temptation out there just to earn more money and have more things. Any quick strategies out there for parents that you can share?
Yeah. So first of all, I mean, I would quote John Maxwell, leadership expert, who says, "Make sure that as you climb the ladder, make sure that your ladder is leaning against the right wall. Don't climb it all the way to the top and then realize, man, I'm I'm against the wrong wall." So the first strategy is make time for what's important. If living life with your teenagers, helping them grow up to be successful adults is important to you, make sure you make time for it. Create a lifestyle where you have time for that, to live life with them. I mean, I think one of my biggest mistakes that we made as parents is when children are little, you do a lot of instructing, right? But as they become teenagers, it needs to be less instructing and more living with them. Just going and understanding where they're at, listening to where they're at, and teaching them different things to work, to make money, to manage their money, to solve problems. But it's going to be more on a listening mode and giving advice as it's needed. So yeah, just make sure that your lifestyle allows for those interactions to happen, for them to do things together with you.
And I like how you said give advice when it's needed, because sometimes we try to provide advice when it's not needed as parents, thinking that we're helpful. And come to find out they don't want anything to do with that. So I know not only that part, but parents do struggle with that transition and figuring out exactly how to transition from those elementary years into those teenage years. How do you approach that? How do you make sure your ladder is on the correct wall in your life, and then applying that to parents out there and strategies that they can use?
I would say for parents, first of all, become very practical tip. Become very aware of your finances. Try to avoid debt, because if you're in debt, and we talk about that on our channel as well, as far as managing your finances. If you're in debt, you're going to be in a constant race against time to be, and you get busier and busier and busier. And then if you don't have that freedom, then it's going to be harder for you to find the time to spend with your teenagers. So figure out a lifestyle to eliminate debt and to figure out how you can have more time available. So
Awesome. So just really sitting down and thinking about your finances, and then what's the best plan of attack to get to that location where you're able to provide the finances that you need, so that way you strip away other things to spend the time with your kids.
yeah, yeah, correct. Figure out what the big rocks in your life are. One of them, obviously, we believe is your finances. They have to be in order. Another one is your health, and you have to live this by example, right? And another one should be your teenagers. Make sure you have time for all those. We live in a culture and a society that allows you to create that. The problem is we have so many distractions, Bernardo, that don't allow us to, that rob us of the time. You know, we put in the sand first, we put in the water first, and then we try to fit in the teenagers at the end. It doesn't work like that. You have to put in what's important first.
And how do you prioritize that? Making sure you're putting in what is important first. How do you eliminate those distractions?
Number one, work. If you're married, work on communication with your spouse. And then, whether you're married or not, another important factor is find friends that you look up to in those areas. You know, find mentors. It's going to be very hard for you to find one person that can guide you in all different areas. Maybe you'll find somebody that you respect who can help you in your financial aspect. Somebody else that can be your leader in the health aspect. And then another one in relationship aspect, how to solve conflicts and how to grow the relationship with your teens. We are the product of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So there are people that are doing it right. Identify them and be humble to learn from them.
So finding somebody in your circle of influence who is doing what you think is right, probably in finances or in their work-life balance. And I know for us, me and my family, we're really blessed to have my father-in-law. We look up to him when it comes to all things finances. So you're saying go and find somebody who you look up to who can provide that advice, because you're not going to find it in just one person.
Yeah, and you know what? Our lives are irrelevant to most people's lives. Most people will be unaffected by our departure from this world. But the people that will be forever affected will be your immediate family. So your teenagers will be immediately affected. So don't live to please anybody else. If you wanted to get that car, the fancy brand new car, and you know that financially you cannot do it, don't do it to impress anybody else. Don't live your life to impress anybody else, because at the end, the only people that matter are the people that are closest to you. So live your life for the big rocks.
Most people slowly fade away, but those people who don't are the people that are right around you, the family that you're surrounding yourself with. That's so important. And like you mentioned, with Instagram and all this social media, right? Everybody's just showing you what they want you to see. So you can either believe that or just focus on your own stuff, like we're talking about here, right? Looking at your finances and making sure that they're in order and that you're doing what you need to make the necessary money. Then you go to put those big rocks in first, because that's where you're really going to need to put your time in if connecting with your teenagers is something that you want to do and you want to focus on. And in the end, it's not going to really matter to anybody else except for that family that is in your circle. Hey, while you're at it, might as well find a mentor too to help you navigate through all of these struggles.
Yeah, one additional thought about that, moms and dads, I'll give you some news with with the example that I just gave you. Most people don't care about you. They're not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. Dale Carnegie in the book How to Win Friends and Influence People talks about everybody's favorite word in their own language is the first name. When you look at a group photo, who do you look for first? For yourself, right? So when you're worried about, oh man, I don't like where I live, I don't like the clothes I wear, I'm not the cool parent who takes my kids to all these cool activities, I don't have the nice car, don't worry about it, because nobody's thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. So you think about the people that are important in your life. If you pour yourself into those big rocks, just a few big rocks in your life, your family, of course, your finances, then your health, when life is simple.
And that speaks specifically to that work-life balance of, if you have 1,000 other things going on in addition to work, in addition to your family, and you're just trying to do everything, then we're definitely going to run into some issues with happiness and being able to effectively connect with your teenager. Cesar, thank you so much. Your stories and your expertise were definitely a breath of fresh air to parents out there as they're struggling to connect, but also work and figure out how to make this all happen. How can people connect with what you're doing right now?
You can follow us on Instagram at Cesar and Pam. And Cesar and Pam, spelled Cesar. And you can always also follow us on YouTube and Facebook, on our pages under the same name, Cesar and Pam. If you speak Spanish, our larger following is in Spanish. So it'll be Cesar y Pamela. Cesar and Pam, CesarYPamela.com.
There we go. Cesar, thank you for your time today, connecting with teens. Again, Bernardo Salcido, I know you've learned something very valuable today. So now go ahead and take that to your teenager because, hey, today is really the best day to connect with your teen.
I have another story that I just remembered. A few years ago, I took my kids to the neighborhood pool, and there was an older gentleman sitting there with his grandkids. I thought it was grandkids or great grandkids. I started talking to him, and he was telling me some stories. That I asked him, "Sir, how old are you?" And he told me, "I'm 94." He said,
What?
"Wow, 94, and how many kids do you have?" He had like 6 kids. And
Just like you.
yeah, right. But then he told me that he was one of 17 children when he grew up. And wow, I couldn't even comprehend that, right? And he was telling me stories about, I was asking about growing up, and he told me, oh, growing up was simple. I grew up in a farm in Kansas or somewhere in the Midwest. And as soon as I was 8 years old, when I was done with my chores and done with my school, I would work at another farm. And after working there for 4 hours, I would come home, and the coin that I made, I'd come and put it in a little jar with everybody. That's what everybody did. He described to me a very simple life. And I asked him, what do you think is wrong with our society today? We seem to be more stressed, which is something that I noticed when I moved to the US, that the level of depression, anxiety, suicide, loneliness was so much higher here in the US. And I always thought, why? There's so much more prosperity. And it's because you have so many options, so much information that you're never satisfied. And this is what this gentleman told me. He told me, I think the problem today is that people know too much. Because when I came back from war, they dropped me off somewhere in Missouri. And on the way to Kansas, I had no way to communicate with anybody. I took a job at a farm, hours from home. And I ended up, long story short, I ended up living there my whole life. I married the farmer's daughter. I lived there my whole life, a happy life. And I didn't know there was so much more out there. And today, going back to connectedness and social media, we know so much that we're constantly dissatisfied. And I think that's a problem. Remember that I would tell you that happiness, fulfillment is from pouring yourself into the lives of a few people. And those people is your immediate family.